I've never seen a hire more universally loved. Like, it kind of scares me in a way because no one has one bad thing to say about the Seahawks hire.
I agree, but at the same time, it is a good hire. It's what most of us wanted because it was him or Ben Johnson. He was what's available. One of the things I really like about the young coach thing that's going on is I feel like we're trying to find a way to compete within the division as well. We have a lot of young minds in the division and a lot of young minds that are probably going nowhere. So they're trying to counter that with a young defensive mind to see if we can get somewhat to the level of the 49ers, Rams, and maybe even Cardinals one day. So overall, I do like the hire. You're listening to the Sports on Tap Seattle podcast. I'm Sammy, and with me as always is my older brother, George.
Your favorite place to be a fan of Seattle sports. Now let's get this party started.
Gino, are you ready? Are you ready? You ready?
Mike McDaniel being the new head coach of the Seattle Seahawks in a new era, which is from the oldest coach, George, in all of the NFL to the youngest coach in all of the NFL, which is a nice feeling as a Seahawks fan, I would say. I think it's cool to start a new era with someone that potentially could be there for a really, really long time if things go well, which I like.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it goes to show what exactly was the cultural shift that John Schneider, Jody Allen, and company wanted for the Seattle Seahawks, and that's they wanted to go from the old to the new. Literally, they went from the oldest to the newest head coach in football. So, yeah, I think that was probably something evident that they were looking forward to doing was trying to bring in a young guy, energetic guy, because I think one thing, despite, moving on from Pete Carroll, that they really loved was his energy. And to match his energy, you probably need someone young, not an older type of head coach. So maybe that was just part of a culture that they wanted to keep, was that young, hip, energetic feel that, despite being the oldest coach in the NFL, Pete Carroll brought.
Yeah, but I feel like at the same time, they were looking for a different type of energy, right? Mm-hmm. I think specifically by going and getting somebody like Mike Macdonald from the Baltimore Ravens organization and kind of like a young and energetic, but kind of back to that like pure football mentality and a little less just happy-go-lucky mentality, right? And I think I saw a tweet recently about Dave Canales. I don't know if I'm saying it right, the one that went from Tampa Bay, the offensive coordinator, to the Panthers job. And they were saying that it was almost because his like mentor is Pete Carroll, right? And he like coached Geno Smith and Russell Wilson. He thanked those three people specifically, actually, in his press conference today or yesterday, whatever it was. Pete Carroll, Geno Smith, Russell Wilson. And some people were saying, I could see why John didn't bring him in for an interview even, because he's almost like a spitting resemblance of Pete Carroll. Right. And I feel like they wanted to go young so they can keep the energy like you're saying, but they didn't want to keep the same type of energy, right? Not just like positive, happy-go-lucky. I feel like they wanted young, but with some more like that Baltimore Ravens, Pittsburgh Steelers, like we're like a hard-nosed, like not overly joyful energy, but still energy, if that makes sense. Like just kind of like a real, he comes across as just a pure football guy.
Right. And, in general, like now to that, right? And they brought in a Baltimore, Pittsburgh. I personally was surprised by the move. Let me rephrase that. I was surprised. I would have been surprised at the move if after they hired Pete Carroll that we would have went after him as Mike McDaniel as our head coach. I think the last few days I wasn't surprised because all signs pointed towards him. But I'm surprised we went that route at the beginning because you look at our division with, the Rams offensive head coach been very successful. The 49ers offensive head coach, they're in the Super Bowl. The Arizona Cardinals, Gannon, offensive head coach. And then we've shifted. I felt like getting rid of Pete Carroll, we were looking to shift to the offensive side of a ball, and then we stuck to the defensive side of a ball. Not sure, personally, if you asked me at the beginning of this process, is that what I wanted, is to go get a defensive guy? I probably would have said no. And I think most fans probably would have thought the same at the beginning of the process, I'm saying. Maybe not today.
I would say like a 50-50 split between the idea of offense wins now. I think it's been 6 years since a defensive head coach has won a Super Bowl.
And that was and he happened to have the best quarterback in history of football when he did it.
Literally. And then if you even keep going back, right, a lot of that era was more like Pete Carroll, Bill Belichick, like some of the greatest coaches of all time, not just dudes, right? They were some of the greatest of all times. But I would say it's almost like a 50-50 type of thing. I would say it's a situation where, yes, I would say the majority would probably lean somewhat offense, but I would say also, considering the fact that the Seattle Seahawks and John Schneider have won a Super Bowl based on defense, that I think there are some fans that slightly understand the impact of a defensive coach more than what a different fan base would want, right? Which is all offense right now. And I still think offense is very important, and I think that would be the number one pick if there was the right guy. But I think the only reason we don't really see any, this is one of the most universally accepted hirings I've seen in a long time for like the sport I follow, right? Because he is one of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, we saw he won the press conference today, pretty much. I mean, God, he says all the right things, and I agree with you. It's and that's, I guess, like that's what makes me worried, because I'm also happy with the hire. I'm like, this is a fucking great hire, but it worries me because I've never seen a universally agreed upon hire before, and I'm just like, I'm trying to play devil's advocate here and say, I wonder what the downfalls could be to this, and I think the downfall is that the whole league has, I mean, look, we even see it, right? I think, every single team, I think last year, one defensive coach won a playoff game. The year before that, one defensive coach won a playoff game. This year, well, we got lucky that, maybe D'Amico Ryan's a defensive coach, had CJ Stroud. They won a playoff game. But then look at Josh Allen, who's maybe the second most talented quarterback in the league, out of a Super Bowl again, defensive coach. That's my only concern with this, is that we're universally, every single person I know, I've talked to is happy about it. Everything I see on Twitter is praising the guy. I'm praising the guy. You're praising the guy. And I just haven't seen that before in a hire for any team that I've ever been a part of, ever. Like literally never, ever.
Yeah. I mean, you look back at even when Pete Carroll got hired, right? There was still some even Pete Carroll every time he's been hired somewhere. When he was with the Jets, when he was with the USC, Patriots. People were talking about it. Patriots with the Seahawks, even it was like, I don't know, college guy, he hasn't really done good. And then even with the Washington Huskies, if you look at it, Kalen, we had Chris Peterson was probably pretty universal coming from Boise State. But then you go to Kalen DeBoer, and it's like somebody like me, I'm like, who the fuck is Kalen DeBoer? Like what is this guy, right? And then now Jed Fish, I'm sure most people seem pretty happy, but it's like there's some people who are like, whatever, he's going to leave in 2 years also. Right. There's always some criticism. When Scott Service for the Mariners came, people were like, it's just because he's Jerry DiPoto's friend, right? So there was always some bitching about the coaches. With Mike Macdonald, it's been very I think there's a couple reasons why it's been so easily universally accepted. One, because if you were going to hire a defensive coach this year, it's him, right? If I'm a Commanders fan today, I don't think we got much better from going from Ron Rivera to Dan Quinn.
Two guys, both been to the Super Bowl, both lost.
Both are good coaches, and they're both good coaches. But
I'm not getting excited about it.
Yeah. If I had to line up resumes, Dan Quinn and Ron Rivera, it's like you're literally talking about the exact same guy, right?
Right.
If you look at a lot of other teams, I think the trend outside of big names like Jim Harbaugh, right? Okay, Jim Harbaugh makes sense. Everyone else, outside of the Dan Quinn and Jim Harbaugh one, kind of started to go for something young and different. Raheem Morris and Dave Canales and Mike Macdonald now, and all these different moves have been kind of let's see who we can find as the next dude. And the reason Mike Macdonald's so accepted, and I saw on Twitter, some people were saying, why do you keep saying this? If you go through a lot of the articles on CBS, on ESPN, I'm not saying this out of my opinion. I'm saying this out of what other NFL execs are saying. And those things can always be taken with a grain of salt. But everybody in NFL circles are saying Mike Macdonald is the Sean McVay on the defensive side when it comes to young coaches. So I think that's why this is so universally accepted, is because you've seen Mike Macdonald's defense. They're the first defense in NFL history to have a triple crown, they called it on Bleacher Report. Last year, the Ravens defense, which I know can go into personnel too, but they have fewest points per game, most turnovers, and most sacks in an NFL season. So there's a lot of like, wow, big numbers with this guy, and I think that's why it's so universally accepted, on top of only being 36 and climbing the ranks and doing it in Baltimore, which is like prestige.
Yeah, that makes, I mean, God, it makes total sense. I get the excitement. And I sound a little more pessimistic than other people right now because I am trying to, like, it would be very easy to come on this podcast and just be so excited about this head coach because there's so much to be excited about. But I'm just wondering in my head, okay, like I've never, like I said, universally never seen a hire feel so like everyone's like, yup.
Yeah, but I wouldn't even say you're pessimistic. I would just say that you're like wondering, like, are we just over? It's weird that everyone's in agreement, so it gives you some like hesitancy. But you're also agreeing it's a great hire.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's a great hire, but I'm gonna say one thing: this hire is all dependent on the quarterback position, just like any hire in the NFL. We have the most important draft coming up in a long time, or offseason in a long time. And I think Mike McDaniel, is he pronounced it McDonald or like with a hard M, or is it like just McDonald?
Well, you've been saying McDaniel a couple times too, but
McDonald.
McDonald.
I know it's McDonald. But is it
not like McDonald's, but not like McDonald.
Yeah, McDonald. Yeah, it's kind of it's spelled McDonald, but it's McDonald. McDonald.
I feel like it's the fast way. You say McDonald.
Yeah, and I think in general here, he could win with Geno Smith for 1 year and be a competitive type of team. But this team is going nowhere unless we get a future quarterback. I don't think this team. I mean, sure, cool. We could probably go 10-7, but will we really be that much better than we were last year if we don't get a quarterback?
I think Geno Smith's the quarterback no matter what next year. Personally,
yeah, me
speaking.
too. No, me too. Next year, I'm talking about for the future, bro. Like, will we be that much better next year? Maybe not. But then, are we going to find the future quarterback?
Yeah. I mean, if it was me, just based off of, I'm looking at the way Green Bay does it. They're obviously the greatest QB farm ever. Like, if you just look at what they do, yeah, like go draft a quarterback. Even if it's, Mike McDonald is a big JJ McCarthy guy. Okay, and I'm not saying I'm a big JJ McCarthy guy because he seems like an AJ McCarron. Like he seems like a Jake Browning, right? He seems like a college guy that's going to go to the NFL and probably be like mostly a backup. But if he's a big JJ McCarthy guy, for example, you can get JJ McCarthy with the like I don't know where he is on draft boards, but with the 16th pick or maybe second round, your second pick, and he believes in him, right? Because he coached at Michigan and whatever. If you could do that and put him behind Geno for two years and just see what we got out of the guy, I say why not? Because I think, to your point, and this is what's going to get really, really interesting. Pete Carroll, for the first 2 years, didn't have his quarterback yet.
Right.
And I know Pete Carroll's a defensive coach too, but he didn't have his guy yet. And they went, 7-9 and then 8-8 the next year, I think, or 7-9. No, I think it was 6-10, and then they made the playoffs at 7-9 that second year, right? So whatever, they had a couple down years until they got Russell Wilson in 2012, and then skyrocketed. So there's two parts to this, which is I think it's okay if I see a lot of people saying the expectations is like get us close enough to the playoffs next year, but I'm like, it doesn't have to be a right away experiment. It needs to be that we're seeing certain parts of the team getting a lot better, and then I think to your point is have some type of plan for who's going to be the quarterback. We're not going to find a Russell Wilson in the third round who comes in and starts and makes the Super Bowl his next year. We're not going to find that again. That's a one in every 100 drafts that happens, right?
I'd hope to find one again, but it would be almost impossible.
No, you might be able to find that quarterback, but I'm saying in the third round.
Yeah, no, I'm saying I hope to. It'd be like winning the lottery twice. That'd be great, but it's not happening.
It's not happening. So you have to draft a guy this year, whether it's Michael Penix or J.J. McCarthy or whoever it is. 'Cause I know you're not going to get, the...
Yeah, of course. You're not going to... But I would be... Look, I hope he's not hitching his wagon to J.J. McCarthy. I'll just say it that. Like, maybe there's a lot more better talent evaluators than me, but it seems like a lot of people are on mixed feelings about McCarthy all over the board. You have executives who think he could be an okay quarterback in the NFL, and then you have guys who think he can be. But I've never seen one person come in and say that JJ McCarthy can be a superstar in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's not him either. But
Yeah.
They also said that about Russell Wilson, and he was a third-round pick and then went to back-to-back Super Bowls, right? So
no, yeah, absolutely.
And Tom Brady is out of Michigan, was a sixth-round pick. So I'm just saying, at the end of the day, I agree with you, but I'm just going to let the evaluators do the evaluating, and I'm just saying whoever the guy may be, get one of them. And there is rumors now. I don't know if you saw it right before we started the podcast, which was Ryan Grubb is potentially leaving Alabama to come back to Washington, a.k.a. to Seattle, to the Seahawks. At that point, either McCarthy or Penix both become very intriguing because McDonald's worked at Michigan with J.J. McCarthy there, and Grubb obviously loves Penix. It doesn't hurt to bring in a guy like that and have him behind Geno. I don't want to throw a rookie out into the fire. I just don't think it's – unless you're like C.J. Stroud and you're like exceptional. So it just most of the time has been – it seems like it's not working great for young quarterbacks. So bring one in, and I think those are kind of two important things that a lot of people are missing that you mentioned, which is quarterback – but then offensive coordinator, because right now Mike McDaniel, I see McDaniel sometime too. Mike Macdonald he said he will be calling defensive plays until further notice, unless there is a system and a guy that they figure out that they could do it together, right? But he's going to be calling defense. So it's very important that we get the right offensive coordinator and the right offense going, because at the end of the day, no matter as good as the Ravens were this year, right? As good as their defense was, they also had the MVP of the NFL in Lamar Jackson. Mm-hmm. And Lamar Jackson not playing good in the second half against the Chiefs is why the Ravens lost, right? Yeah, no matter how good. Yeah, the defense gave up 0 points to Mahomes in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, there was 5 straight 3-and-outs almost, or 4 straight 3-and-outs, or 4 straight punts, something like that. Like, the defense was amazing.
Yeah, if I told you that Ravens defense, George, was going to hold the Chiefs to 17 points at home, who would you think won?
Oh, easily the Baltimore Ravens.
So my thing is, as good as their defense is, and this is an exact example of what happened with Seattle back in 2012, 2013, 14. Our defense was maybe one of the best 2 or 3 defenses ever, right?
Right.
But guess what? It really clicked when we got a quarterback that can also go down the field and a running back in Marshawn Lynch and a team that could go score the ball. Because if you can't score, then it's not gonna work. So the offensive coordinator, I think, even bigger than the quarterback idea, because quarterback, we still have 2 or 3 years to maybe get to that point, maybe a year or 2, whatever it is. But offensive coordinator is also going to be a really huge decision that they make, because defensive head coach, you can't, no matter how good your defense gets, we can't have stalling offenses, right? And that's my, I honestly am just as excited to figure out who's this offensive coordinator and what's the plan moving forward and what's the plan for quarterback in the next year or 2. Because no offense to Geno Smith, I really think he's been as perfect of a stopgap that you can ask for in the NFL, right? A guy that can get you 9-10 wins and get you the playoffs and transition, but he is 33 or 34 years old. So he's not going to be the quarterback in 5 years. So those 2 things are going to be very interesting to see.
Yep, going to be really interesting, but I think overall most Seahawk fans are happy with the hire, and in a weird way it just scares the hell out of me because never seen a more universally liked hire before. So
yeah, I will be honest. That's scary.
It's scary. I've never seen it before.
Man, it's weird. It's I got the notification. Well, actually, before we even found out he was the hire, right? Once it came down to Ben Johnson staying in Detroit, I feel like it was 99% of Seahawks fans. I'd say 99. Maybe there's a small percentage here and there that were like, oh, Dan Quinn, or go get an offensive coach, whatever. But 99% of people were like, yeah, probably Mike McDonald. And Mike McDonald's going to be the guy. This McDonald thing's going to kill me.
There's too many M's. That's why.
Yeah. McDonald's. I don't want to say McDonald's either, so I keep saying McDaniels. But Mike Macdonald was kind of universally, like you said, like everyone was like, okay, probably by the end of this week it's him. And then it was, and then everyone was excited. There was no like, I don't know, like once Ben Johnson was out of the picture, it was just like almost, these things are supposed to be annoying and complicated, right? It was almost too like, oh yeah, we all want McDonald, and it's like, oh okay, well we're gonna hire him. Oh okay, he's hired, and then we're like, cool.
It's like Harbaugh
Yeah.
for the Chargers. Like, oh, we want this guy. All right, we got this guy.
And then it's like, cool, that oddly worked. But the one big difference is they know Harbaugh is an beyond excellent head coach, while Mike Macdonald is an excellent coordinator and young, and he seems like a guy that's gonna be excellent for like character building, culture, and whatever it is. And I think, George, I don't know if you said this to me, but it does somewhat feel like a culture hire too.
It is a whole culture hire, 100%. And like you just said, we know he's an excellent coordinator. We're going to find out if he's an excellent head coach. I guess to like kind of just at least give a different perspective and then it's just saying great hire. A lot of people are excellent coordinators but can't be head coaches. So that would be the only downside, I guess, in the hire if that I could find.
Yeah.
But like hopefully not. But I mean, I just don't want to echo everything. Like I don't think people are coming here just to hear the same thing they heard on Twitter, that it's a great hire and God bless them and happy Seahawks.
But it is a good hire.
But it is a good hire and I am happy. But I would say that would be my only like I guess zag while everyone else zigs is a lot of people aren't meant to be head coaches. They're only meant to be coordinators. Hopefully that's not the case here, and he's meant to be a head coach too.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen one or two of those, George, on Twitter, which is like, okay, he's just another one of the, you know, it's like you say, oh, everybody wants to have the next Sean McVay, right?
Right.
Everyone's like, ooh, the next Sean McVay is this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy. It's like all these young guys. Like I saw somebody on Twitter say, another hire of an unproven coordinator just so you could say I got the new hot young piece, like he's going to wash out in 3 years. And that's not how I feel, but I understand where that perspective comes from too, because let me tell you something. When you're 36 and you're supposed to be the next big thing, if you have 3 straight 6-11 seasons, guess what? You're done.
You're done. So yeah, we'll find out.
And so
I hope that.
I'm not saying that's going to happen, but you know what I mean. Like
I know exactly.
It does happen to people, and it's I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. But I do have one question.
Yep.
I have like 2 or 3 more minutes. George, I know George knows my time schedule here.
All right, yeah, that's why I kind of tried to wrap it up there. You know.
It's okay. My fiance said I have a wedding coordinator meeting. My fiance said she'll get started without me, so I have 5 more minutes.
Did you guys already choose the coordinator, or still in the hiring process? Like
the coordinator, it was just as smooth as the Seahawks hiring.
Okay, good.
We called the hotel. I'm not going to disclose the location yet, but we called the hotel. They said and the hotel gave us a coordinator. Said this is your person. We met with her. She was great, and we were like, wow. What an easy hire. It was almost like Seahawks and Mike.
So she's like the Mike Macdonald of wedding coordinators.
Okay, I'm just going to start calling him MM. Just to like, M&M. So I don't have these tongues. MM, Mike Macdonald, M&M. My one question to you, and I asked this on Twitter today on Seattle on Tap, and it's what would you consider a positive first year? And I'll tell you some of the ranges we've got is some of them has been playoff oriented, right? Like go 9-8 or 10-7 and make the playoffs. Not have a losing record. I've seen some that is at least like get a split with like I think we've lost like 9 out of the last 10 to the 49ers and Rams. Like I saw some of those get some splits within the division is a positive start. So what would you say is like your at least baseline? Like you want to see something like because there's always something. We went 9-8 last year, 2 years in a row. So if you're far below that, there's something wrong. And
so
where's like the line?
I think it's pretty simple for me. Have a winning record. I know. Look, the Seahawks team is not going to win the Super Bowl this year. I know. Spoiler alert. The NFL script came out. I read it. We're not the Super Bowl champ. We're not the Super Bowl champions next year. But that's because
you just ruined my entire season. Why am I watching?
Well, I didn't know spoiler alerts. I'm not going to tell you who the script said is going to be the Super Bowl champion.
But we're not winning it?
But we're not going to win it. And I'll tell you
Are you
why.
100% sure?
100% sure why. Mike Macdonald had a farm of NFL amazing amazing. Get it? My old McDonald had a farm. Mike McDonald had
Okay,
a farm of
I
the
got it.
greatest defense in the NFL last year, and his offense happened to have the NFL MVP, and they didn't win the Super Bowl. We're not winning the Super
And
Bowl.
our roster's not there yet.
Our roster's
Yeah.
not there yet, but I think so. I think maintaining a winning record so we can take another step up the next year is a positive year to me. Just maintain that 9-8 record. Hopefully, do better. The more, the merrier.
Yeah.
But I don't want to see a step backward. I can't if we go to 8-9, it's like, and we took a step back from where we were this year, I would be disappointed.
Unless, and I that's exactly where my brain's at. One, I would like to see a win against McVay or Shanahan, just to feel like we have one of those young coaches that are thinking ahead, right? I feel like the Pete Carroll killer. The reason he's probably not the coach is because McVay and Shanahan have had his number the last 2 or 3 years, right? Completely. So I'd love to see a win against one of those teams, a nice statement win. And remember, the Ravens, they're the ones that got 5 picks on the 49ers this year, 4 on Purdy, 1 on Darnold. They beat the Rams, they beat the Cardinals, and they held the Seahawks to 3 points. You remember that game?
Yeah, but they also
That was a
happen to have
bad
the
game.
best. They also happen to have the best safety in the NFL.
I totally understand.
Yeah,
But that's,
you know.
I mean, the Seahawks have very good defensive talent.
Oh, yeah, we have good defense.
If anything, with Boye Mafe, Uchenna Nwasu coming back, if they re-sign Leonard Williams, Spoon, Woolen, Diggs, and Love are decent safeties. Jordan Brooks is young. I mean, we have talent if it's being done the right way. So I'm not saying we're going to be the Ravens defense, but I just would like to see a win against one of these division rivals that makes a good statement. And on top of that, keep the winning record. And my one pivot to it, though, is unless we see a total retool. I'm not saying rebuild. I don't think this team's rebuilding. They're not going, they're not going to trade away DK and all these young pieces.
There's no time for rebuilding in the NFL.
Yeah. I'm saying retool, though.
Yeah.
You might be willing to be less good for a year to say, hey, let's kind of retool this, get rid of some big contracts, work on things. That's what we're going to have to find out here as the season approaches is they might retool a little bit, get rid of some contracts, and then we'll see where it is. But as of right now, if we're keeping the roster and just adding in the draft, doing whatever we do, a regular offseason, right? A regular Seahawks offseason, I would say 9-8 is a must because if you don't, you're regressing. And get a division win because that would just feel good at least.
Yeah, that'd feel good. But to me, I guess I'm going to put that as one of my I don't know, it's a very interesting way to look at it. I haven't thought of it beforehand, and the way you put it, it's interesting. But I guess to me, I just feel like we are so far behind those teams right now that I don't know if that's just give me 9-8, keep a winning record, and then go from there. I really feel like we're far behind both of those teams.
We're not though. I mean, missed field goals against the Rams is what makes us lose a game.
I know. It's but Matt Stafford missed a few games and they made the playoffs. I wonder if Matt Stafford was healthy the whole entire year. Maybe we're 2 games behind them instead of a game behind them. You know what I mean? Maybe I could be wrong, and they drafted so well. Their weapons are pretty damn good. I don't know. I just feel like we're behind both of those teams right
I
now.
think it's just I think it might be their coaching.
But you know what? We have a draft coming up. There's free agency. Couple players. Maybe we're not behind them anymore.
Yeah, and we're pretty good at drafting too. The last 2 drafts have been phenomenal for us.
Maybe it's just a couple, couple good picks and a couple talents, and we're no longer that far behind them.
Yeah. Well, we might be far behind the 49ers still, but the Rams definitely.
Yes, I was talking more about the Rams. I think.
Yeah. 49ers, we're still behind them, unfortunately.
Yeah, I feel like as much as, us Seahawks fans hate the 49ers, I think it's pretty evident that they're in the Super Bowl for a reason.
Yeah, for the second time in a couple years.
Yeah.
And it was so funny. Some people on Twitter were like, oh, my God, I wish he didn't say that. But it's funny because the GMs don't give a fuck who wins the Super Bowl right now, right?
No.
John Schneider doesn't give a shit if the 49ers win. It doesn't bother him more than any other team. Fans, right?
I know, like me, I've kind of stated it 100 times on this podcast, and even with when we talk about the Mariners, I don't give a fuck if the 49ers.
Yeah, well, I was going to tell you why. I don't know if you heard why.
No, let's see why, but I'm telling you,
because
let's see if it's the same reason I did.
One of the first things he said in his press conference was that I'm praying for. I was at church praying really hard, and people thought I was going through a lot, but I was praying really hard at church on Sunday that the Lions and Ravens lose. And he looked at McDaniel or Mike McDonald. He's like, I'm sorry. He's like, I didn't really I wasn't rooting against you, but I wanted to interview you guys. And he was saying that because he wanted to interview McDonald and Ben Johnson. But a lot of people were like, I wish he didn't say the Lions part losing. We're all rooting for the Lions. But I was thinking about it. I was like, it's like you. It's like the GM, though, he doesn't give a shit if you know what he cares? He cares that the Seahawks didn't win the Super Bowl. He doesn't care. He doesn't care if the 49ers win it. He's not in competition with the 49ers. He's in competition with the Seahawks, right? So it's funny that he was rooting for the Lions and Ravens to lose just so he can interview guys.
Yeah, but I guess I'm like the least typical fan, I guess, when it comes to rivalries. Like I get college sports, I totally get it. I totally get college sport rivalries, but NFL rivalries, for some reason, they just like don't resonate with me for some reason. And Major League Baseball, because I don't feel like I don't actually feel like the city of San Francisco and the city of Seattle have a real rivalry. Because when the Sonics were playing, we didn't really have a rivalry with the Golden State Warriors, and the Mariners and the Giants don't really.
But it's
have
not a city thing.
But I know it's not a city thing. It's an interdivision thing. But I just don't. I'm weird.
College is not always a city thing either, right?
It's
just a college thing.
Yeah,
my thing is, I feel the opposite. Like with college, and that's because I didn't go to UW, right? But I am a UW fan, but I actually don't care if like Gonzaga does good, or if I don't really care if Wazoo does good. You care.
I do.
And some people don't. And some people don't, by the way. It's not just, like, it just depends on the person. Some people don't care. Some people really care. For me, football too, like I prefer to see the 49ers not win the Super Bowl personally.
Yeah, I'm rooting for the Chiefs.
Yeah, me too. But it doesn't bother me as much as the one thing that bothers me is baseball. And maybe I think for me, the one reason, the Astros scandals and stuff, obviously. And number two is because baseball is 162 games. I think so you're just even more hooked.
And you play the Astros like 25 times a year, 20 times.
Yeah, not like once or twice.
Literally, it takes 20 years of NFL
to watch 1 year Mariners versus Astros.
Astros. So yeah, cool. I hate the 49ers, but not not that much.
Yeah, I hate them twice a year, and I prefer them not to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, same.
But with baseball, it's I've literally watched fucking 50 Astro Mariners games in the last 2 years. I don't want that Astros to win. That's the big difference. Yeah. Well, I got to get going, Georgie, but it was exciting news, a big hire, and we'll be back as always on the Sports on Tap Seattle podcast. And you have anything else?
That's it, man. Go Hawks. And that's
nice
it.
Hire.
Yeah. Great hire. It's a perfect hire, man. There's nothing wrong with it. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite us in the ass. I cannot find one thing.
It is a great hire.
I know. I can't find one thing I don't
like. Would you be happy if they hired Dan Quinn today?
No. I love
exactly.
No, I'm telling you.
Dan Quinn's going to go win a Super Bowl next year. Watch.
He won't. I promise. I saw the script.
So, yeah, he won't. Okay, that's fair. Ruined my no reason to watch next year, guys. Seahawks aren't winning the Super Bowl according to the script.
Not me.
Much love, and we'll be back soon. And George, you know what we like to say?
Hey, thanks for stopping by.